Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier. As California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell resigns from Congress, another woman comes forward to accuse him of sexual assault. Revelations that the Biden Justice Department targeted pro-life advocates for harsh treatment, including especially long prison sentences. And the Michigan man who says his wife fell off a small boat in the Bahamas is freed from custody without facing charges. But first, breaking tonight, President Trump is hinting that a second round of peace talks with Iran could be happening over the next 2 days. The first round ended Saturday in Pakistan without an agreement. The main sticking point appears to be the Islamic Republic's nuclear ambitions. All of this comes as the U.S. military says it is enforcing the blockade of any ships that have visited Iranian ports. That blockade is taking place in the Gulf of Oman. Also tonight, the State Department hosts talks between Israel and Lebanon over the bombing of Hezbollah terrorists. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Bret. Turns out the U.S. president not a fan of a key part of the U.S. delegation's offer to the Iranians, the part where the negotiators told Iran, you just can't enrich uranium for 2 decades. President Trump told the New York Post this afternoon, I've been saying they can't have nuclear weapons, so I don't like the 20 years. But despite that, he still thinks that a deal with Iran is possible by the end of this week.
We do think we're dealing with some rational actors.
The U.S. and Iran may have stopped shooting at each other for now, but Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon have not. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio played host today at the State Department.
All of the complexities of this matter are not going to be resolved in the next 6 hours, but we can begin to move forward.
President Trump told a New York Post reporter on assignment in Pakistan, the site of stalled U.S.-Iran peace talks, you should stay there, really, because something could be happening over the next 2 days, and we're more inclined to go there. Democrats, unconvinced.
Not Operation Epic Fury, Operation Epic Failure.
Just a day after warning China not to provide Iran with air defense systems, the Chinese are saying they're actually working to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
All parties need to remain calm and exercise restraint. China will continue playing a constructive role.
While the strait is closed, some American businesses will suffer.
Certain industries are going to be hit harder, right? Airlines, farmers, what that's going to mean for food, military contractors are going to do better.
A domino effect from a squeezed Strait of Hormuz runs right through Europe. And a frustrated president posted today, Europe is desperate for energy, and yet the United Kingdom refuses to open North Sea oil, one of the greatest oil fields in the world. Tragic. No matter what Europe does, gas prices in the U.S. may not peak for weeks.
This is the road to more secure and lower long-term energy supplies, but it does mean higher prices today, probably means higher prices for a few more weeks.
High gas prices tell summer a tough sell. So tomorrow, tax day, we are told that some top officials are going to come out and make the case that certain Trump policies like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime are saving some people more money, no matter how much gas costs. Bret?
Peter Doocy live at the North Lawn. Peter, thanks. U.S. stocks rallied to the edge of their all-time highs today, and crude oil prices eased amid hopes for another round of U.S.-Iran peace talks. The Dow gained 318. The S&P 500 finished ahead 81. The Nasdaq surged 455 today. Tonight, Congress is back with a long to-do list. Among the major items, Homeland Security funding, the President's War Authority, and the Save America Act. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram tells us where things stand tonight.
Republicans plan to fund DHS on their own with what they term a skinny bill devoted to ending the shutdown.
We want to fund ICE and Border Patrol and maybe a few other things, but very narrow, very focused.
However, conservatives also demand Iran war funding. Others want to stuff the Save America Act into the bill, too.
It doesn't need to be skinny. Let's put as much stuff in there as we can get.
Loading up the bill is risky.
You worried they're going to ask for other things, though?
Well, they could. I mean, we have members who want other things. I mean, I want other things. But obviously, we have a specific mission and purpose here.
If he starts making deals to get their votes, it'll be a huge mistake. This skinny bill it's going to become obese very quickly.
Some Republicans are reluctant to spend any more money on Iran.
It's going to be very difficult to get my support until I have a clearly articulated strategy how this is going to be ramping down.
Democrats will force a vote this week to terminate the conflict.
We will vote again and again and again until this war ends.
But most Republicans are hesitant to hamstring the president.
We can't control the time it's going to take to accomplish the mission. We need to be in it to win it.
Also this week, a renewal of the controversial foreign spy program known as FISA Section 702.
It's always been a very tense balancing act, and that continues now. Let's make sure we get the balance right.
Now, President Trump implored House Republicans to pass a clean FISA extension for 18 months. He says FISA is why the military had, quote, tremendous success in Iran and Venezuela. Bret?
Chad, thanks. Also breaking tonight, there are new sexual assault allegations against now former California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. He resigned from Congress today after dropping out of the California gubernatorial race yesterday. Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez also resigning over his own sex-related issues. Here's congressional correspondent Bill Malugin.
Embattled California Congressman Eric Swalwell officially submitting his resignation from Congress today as he faces mounting allegations of sexual misconduct.
He raped me, and he choked me.
Former model Lana Drews becoming Swalwell's fifth accuser, alleging today in a press conference that he drugged and sexually assaulted her in a West Hollywood hotel in 2018.
He said he needed to get paperwork from his hotel room. When I arrived at his hotel room, I was already incapacitated and I couldn't move my arms or my body.
Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, one of Swalwell's closest friends, told reporters today that Swalwell had everyone fooled.
This man led a double life. I was manipulated, I was lied to, and everyone else was too.
On the other side of the aisle, Republican Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez notified the House today he will also resign from Congress at midnight tonight amidst his own sexual misconduct allegations. And Republican Florida Congressman Corey Mills is being investigated by the House Ethics Committee for allegations of sexual and financial misconduct, leading to some Democrats calling for his expulsion. But there are also growing calls from Republicans for Florida Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick to be expelled from Congress after a House Ethics Committee investigation already found she violated House rules, and she's been charged federally for allegedly stealing millions of dollars in FEMA money.
Facts are indisputable at this point, and so I believe it'll be the consensus of this body that she should be expelled.
And Bret, depending on where the dust settles with all these scandals in the House, we might be looking at a future scenario where 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats are pushed out of Congress. That would not change the balance of power in the House. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you.
Yep.
Also breaking tonight, we're getting a new look at a bombshell report alleging the Biden administration weaponized the law to target pro-life activists. The report says the administration worked with abortion rights groups and pursued tougher sentences for its perceived enemies. Here's correspondent David Spun. Good evening,
Bret.
David.
Good evening. The nearly 900-page report focuses on the FACE Act, the 1994 law that makes it a federal crime to use physical force or threaten to use such force on people who are obtaining reproductive health services. Think abortion clinics or pregnancy resource centers. The report alleges the Biden DOJ requested an average sentence of 26.8 months for pro-life defendants compared to 12.3 months for pro-abortion or pro-choice defendants. One of the highest profile cases, Mark Houck. He's a pro-life advocate who was arrested and charged with a FACE Act violation for allegedly assaulting someone outside of Pennsylvania Planned Parenthood. He was later acquitted by a grand jury. At 7:03 a.m. on September 23, 2022, 16 FBI agents arrived at Houck's home in 7 vehicles. The officers were visibly armed. They arrested and handcuffed him outside his front door while his family watched from inside. We reached out to Kristen Clark, who ran the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department during the Biden administration. She says the Civil Rights Division brought law enforcement leaders, crisis pregnancy center representatives, faith leaders, and reproductive health care staff together to address the real violence, threats of violence, and obstruction that too many people face in our country when it comes to reproductive health care. We enforce the law even-handedly and put the public safety at the center of its work. Now, Bret, we're also told that 4 career prosecutors were fired in recent days for their use of the FACE Act during the Biden administration. Today's report is part of an overall DOJ effort to expose what officials there call the weaponization of government under the prior administration. Bret?
And David, some more breaking news from the DOJ just in the past couple of hours.
Just in the past couple of hours, we're told that DOJ reached out to an appeals court and filed motions to vacate seditious conspiracy charges involving Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, some of those involved in the chaos on January 26, 2021, outside and inside the U.S. Capitol. This move would officially vacate their convictions in the court on seditious conspiracy charges, even if they received pardons or commutations. Now we wait for the appeals court to rule, but Bret, it is an unopposed motion.
Yeah, January 6, 2001, still going. All right, David, thanks.
Thanks.
Up next, 2021. Up next, we discuss the economic impact of the Iran conflict with the president of the American Petroleum Institute and Fox Business correspondent Edward Lawrence. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 2 in San Francisco, as a public defender, says the suspect in the attack on the home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman was experiencing a mental health crisis. The lawyer for 20-year-old Daniel Morena Gama says his client is being overcharged. Morena Gama is accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail at the house as part of his opposition to artificial intelligence. Fox 5 in New York with the jury selection in the latest retrial for Harvey Weinstein. It's the 3rd trial for the Hollywood producer on charges he raped a hairstylist and actor in a Manhattan hotel in 2013. This time, jurors will weigh only one charge and one accuser rather than several in previous trials in New York and Los Angeles. He denies all allegations. And this is a live look at Cleveland. One of the big stories there tonight from Fox 8. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announces its newest class of inductees. It includes Phil Collins, Billy Idol, Iron Maiden, Luther Vandross, and several others. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway. From Special Report, we'll be right back.
It's a world market. What would matter is how much a blockade shut down of the whole world's production.
I think the American people get it. Are they happy about the increased costs of energy? No, they're not happy.
Trump at the pump. His picture might as well be on the pump as American gasoline consumers pay the price.
Well, tonight we're going to look at the price of oil and how the economy is holding up during the Middle East conflict. Joining us, Mike Summers, President and CEO of American Petroleum Institute. There he is. And Fox Business correspondent Edward Lawrence. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. WTI crude oil prices today, obviously we track this by the second, right now at 91.36 as it shifts. Here's the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, on price of gas.
Are you confident that gas will be back under $3 a gallon by the busy summer travel season, Mr. Secretary?
There's a very good chance that'll be true. Well, by the summer is aggressive time frame now. Once the conflict ends and energy starts flowing again, you'll start to see downward pressure, but it will take some time. Depending upon the longer the conflict goes, the longer the rebound is.
All right, everybody is asking one question. If we, as a country, are energy independent, producing gas, producing natural gas, producing oil, why are we as a country so reliant when it comes to pricing on the Strait of Hormuz and what's happening over there? Mike, I want a simple answer because I get tons of it.
Well, first of all, the United States is the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the world. We produce 13.6 million barrels of oil a day. But there's a mismatch between what the United States produces and what the United States refines. Remember, in this country, we haven't built a refinery since 1977. So the refineries that we have in this country are built to refine heavier oil that is not produced in the United States. So we get a lot of our oil from places like Canada and Mexico that's refined at a discount so that American consumers can use it. So it's a world price for oil. So if you have oil prices going up anywhere in the world, it's going to be felt by American consumers, even though we are the largest producer in the world.
So even though we have a very small percentage of our oil that goes through the Strait of Hormuz, we are affected if that choke point is effectively choked off.
Absolutely. But we only import right now 8% of our oil from the Persian Gulf. That's an incredible number when you think about what we used to import. Here's the problem. In a state like California, they import 30% of their oil from the Middle East. And that means that prices in California are significantly higher than where they are in the rest of the country.
The blockade is going on. You talked to the Treasury Secretary today, and basically there's not only that blockade, but also a financial blockade.
And we're starting to see that. Yeah, the Treasury Department, a Treasury official now tells me that they're not going to renew a waiver that allows Iran to sell oil that's already on their seas or out on the seas. About 140 million barrels goes out. April 19th, that stops. That's a financial revenue source for Iran. The Treasury Department, also a senior administration official, telling me that they are going after the banks. They found where the money is that Iran is using. They've notified banks in several countries, Oman, UAE, Hong Kong, and China, saying that you need to stop allowing Iran to funnel money through here for illicit activities. Again, cutting off the revenue sources that Iran is using and where they're putting their money.
Yeah. So as we saw oil drop today, actually, and the markets went up today, is that all, do we think, based on the projection of peace talks to come?
Well, one, remember that is a futures price. That is not the price that if you wanted to buy a barrel of oil today, how much it would be, which is still significantly higher than where it should be, which is why we need to get the Strait of Hormuz opened as quickly as possible. There's no substitute. We're about 10 million barrels short a day because of what is going on in the Middle East right now. So we need to get the Strait open, and then we need to get the backlog going. The world is currently about 500 million barrels short because of what hasn't been produced in the Middle East and what can't transit the Strait of Hormuz.
Does this moment change consumption? Does this change the dynamic when it comes to somebody buying a different kind of car, choosing what they're doing, going on the vacation?
Yeah, we're not seeing that as of yet. And when you talk about gas prices, because oil prices relate to gas prices, the Treasury Secretary told us that he's looking at how prices over the last week have even come down a little bit. Now, slightly, but come down a little bit. And he believes that this is transitory, is transient, we've heard that word before, because he thinks that once the Strait of Hormuz is open, we're going to see it quickly fall down, about 30 to 40% of the barrel of oil is what I've heard traders say, almost immediately because of the futures looking out. And yes, I do believe that future traders, oil traders, are looking out at what is happening with the talks. And they believe that, yes, there could be progress on this. They're seeing the pressure the president puts. And with progress, the Strait of Hormuz might open. Therefore, the markets look better 8 months from now.
Mike, you have a lot of discussions behind closed doors with industry leaders. What keeps them up at night? What are they worried about?
What keeps them up at night is the other strait, the Strait of El-Mandab, which is the strait that goes to the Red Sea. So if you see the Houthis start bombing oil tankers that are currently transiting the Strait of El-Mandab, that would be a crisis scenario for world oil markets.
And what's the optimism side, the good side of behind closed doors?
The optimism side is that right here in this country, we have tremendous energy resources. And if we could figure out the broken permitting process that we have in this country, where we can't build anything anymore, particularly these important pipelines, we're not going to be able to get the resources out of the ground.
And Ed, last thing, I mean, talking to the vice president last night, there is this tone that they want to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
And how to get from point A to point B is really the challenge.
And the pressure. I mean, the administration is obviously feeling the pressure. The president wants this wrapped up. He wants to be able to put a bow on it. And he's putting immense pressure on the Iranian regime to get this finished. Now we're seeing he's not holding back financially. You know, you stop the money flow, but you really go after the money flow. The Biden administration put sanctions on, but it didn't really stop the oil money that Iran was getting. These sanctions that the president is talking about and the moves he's making, the secondary sanctions, really will stop the revenue. And that could choke them, bringing them to the table.
All right. Ed, Mike, we appreciate the time. Thanks. Up next, a noted far-left influencer has an extreme position about Republicans, and this may raise some eyebrows. And later, an update from the Bahamas on the man who says his wife fell off a small boat, has not been seen since.
Yes. Do it. Say it. Yes.
There you go. Tonight we're getting a look at the new video showing the moment the Artemis II astronauts were welcomed back to Earth. The Navy medical team opened the hatch to their Orion module after the crew splashed down safely in the Pacific Friday following their historic journey around the moon. A divided federal appeals court says a federal judge must end his contempt investigation of the Trump administration for failing to comply with an order to turn around planes carrying Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador last year. The panel called Judge James Boasberg's actions intrusive and said he abused his discretion. A noted far-left influencer is declaring the Republican Party the biggest terrorist on earth. Hassan Piker has plenty more to say, and he's saying it as he campaigns for a progressive Democratic Senate candidate and hosting a member of the so-called squad. Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel shows us tonight. Good evening, Mike.
Bret, good evening. Hassan Piker is unapologetic for his controversial comments on a range of issues. Piker has said America deserved 9/11. He says his favorite flag is Hezbollah's and that a liberal Zionist is akin to a liberal Nazi. Piker is also highly critical of the GOP.
I hate Republicans. I oppose them. I say that all the time. I think that the Republicans are far more damaging. The biggest terrorists, the biggest domestic terrorists in this country, the biggest terrorist internationally is the Republican Party.
Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott ripped Piker on X, writing, "First, Hassan Piker called for my death. Now he's calling the Republican Party terrorists. His vocal support for actual terrorist orgs should be enough for any elected official to condemn him. It's insane. When will Democrats stop parading around with him and call him out?" Piker appeared on the Pod Save America podcast with former Obama speechwriter John Favreau. Favreau tried to have Piker tamp down his suggestion that Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel.
I do mean it. I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time.
Pennsylvania's Democratic Senator John Fetterman writing on X, "The left 2026. Hamas, check. Nazi tattoos, check. But an X for Israel and Iron Dome." Piker's profile has grown in recent months after hosting Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and he campaigned on college campuses with Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed. Bret?
All right, Mike, thank you. Breaking tonight, just in the past few minutes, Turning Point USA CEO Erica Kirk canceled a planned appearance at today's event in Georgia after receiving what organizers called very serious threats. Erica Kirk is the widow, of course, of the late conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated last year at a Turning Point event in Utah. Today's rally was held at the University of Georgia in Athens. The man who says his wife fell off a small boat in the Bahamas last week is no longer in custody tonight after 5 days. Brian Hooker's wife, Lynette, still has not been found. Correspondent Dana Marie McNichol has an update tonight from Freeport.
Brian Hooker walked free after 5 days in police custody. Bahamian authorities questioned him in connection to his wife's disappearance, but ultimately did not charge him. He told police 55-year-old Lynette Hooker fell overboard on their dinghy 10 days ago. The couple was heading to their sailboat. Brian says Lynette had the key when she fell, disabling the engine. He blames the rough weather that night for the accident. Fox Weather confirmed that there were wind gusts of up to 30 miles per hour.
She basically just bounced off the dinghy. We weren't wearing life jackets. It was sundown and the sun set. The wind blew us apart so fast.
Hooker says he paddled overnight and landed in Marsh Harbor, where he alerted authorities at 4 a.m. He was arrested 5 days later.
There's history of him choking her out and threatening to throw her overboard.
Lynette's daughter, Carly Ellsworth, tells Fox her stepfather has a violent past.
The fact that this is actually happening makes me believe there's more to the story.
She described their 25-year marriage as turbulent. A shocking police report from 2005 revealed Hooker was arrested and tried for child abuse. The report says he choked his young biological daughter over an argument at home, stating, quote, "He picked her up by the neck, slammed her against the wall, and started choking her. he was holding her above his head. Hooker was acquitted on all charges. Lynette's mom and daughter have been speaking out. Do you have a comment? Hooker's attorney says he has denied Ellsworth's allegations and harming Lynette last week.
There has been nobody located, so there's no evidence that she has been murdered.
And Hooker's attorney says that he is staying in the Bahamas to continue searching for his wife, while the U.S. Coast Guard tells us today they are actively investigating this case still. Hooker denies our offer to share his side of the story. Bret?
Dana Marie, thank you. Up next, the panel with the latest on the U.S. blockade against Iranian ports. Some new talks from Vice President Vance, plus talks between Israel and Lebanon. First, beyond our borders tonight, Holocaust survivors from around the world join thousands of people in the March of the Living. It's an annual event held at the site of Auschwitz concentration camp in memory of the 6 million Jews killed by Nazi Germany during World War II. A super typhoon with ferocious winds and heavy rains batters a group of remote U.S. islands in the Pacific Ocean, forcing residents to seek shelter from flying tree limbs and collapsed buildings. About 50,000 people live on those islands. The strongest tropical typhoon on Earth so far this year, packing winds of up to 140 miles per hour. And this is a live look at Edmonton. One of the big stories there tonight, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney suspends the fuel tax in response to the Iran war. It was his first act after securing a majority government. Victories by Carney's Liberals in 3 vacant districts have given them a majority in the House of Commons, meaning they do not need support from opposition parties to pass legislation. Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back.
The public and private sector of Iran is being held together with duct tape and spit.
The Straits of Hormuz, worse, closed, unstable. The Iranian regime, worse. Everything has been made worse by Donald Trump's war of choice.
He's going to start the blockade. He's not going to allow them to finance their war. I think this will ultimately drive them back to the negotiating table.
Well, the U.S. blockade of Iranian ships going to Iranian ports is happening. If you look at the blockade numbers, the service members involved, 10,000 plus, 100 plus aircraft, 12 warships. According to Central Command, the blockade has prevented 0 ships to get through that blockade, Iranian ships. Vessels turned around, 6 of them. It's happening actually in the Gulf of Oman. It gives them space to maneuver. It's a little safer there, but you can look at the U.S. military assets in the Middle East as of just a few minutes ago. And there's still obviously significant presence there. Let's bring in our panel, Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, and Annie Linsky, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Hugh, what do you make of the blockade? It seems like we're heading towards another sit-down with Iran in coming days.
That's what President Trump signaled today, that he expects more talks to occur. I think the blockade was the necessary next step. It's ordered in sequence. The kinetic military strike on the ability to produce the weapons that could harm our military. Now grab them by their fiscal throat and cut them down. I would direct everyone, if they read Iran International, a report has leaked today that the Iranian Central Bank has warned the government it will take 12 years to recover, and they're facing 180% inflation inside of Iran. The hammers come down on Iran, and I think they're crumbling.
180%.
Yes.
That beats our CPI.
Quite a lot, yes.
Yeah. You know, I talked to Vice President Vance last night on the show. He is talking right now at Turning Point USA in Georgia. Just talked about where he thinks things stand at this moment. Take a listen.
Right now, the ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is what the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. And what he's basically offering to Iran is very simple. And frankly, it's something that no president has, I think, has had the ability to offer. He said that if you're willing to act like a normal country, we are willing to treat you economically like a normal country.
Went on to say that he feels good about where things stand, thinks that they're going to get back to the table, and that's what the president signaled earlier.
Yeah, this notion of a grand bargain is something that he, of course, mentioned when he talked to you yesterday in that interview last night. But I think, what the White House and the administration have really been able to do with this reverse blockade is buy some time for, quite frankly, either strategy to work. The blockade means that the United States did not have to take Kyrgyz Island by force, and cuts off funds to the Iranians, sort of their economic bloodline. But it also gives the American forces time to prepare if the president does decide that he wants to go in, and that option very much still is on the table if this grand bargain that he talked to you about and Vance is talking about tonight doesn't come together.
Yeah, Juan, obviously it affects a lot of other countries that have a flow that goes through the strait, including China, which warned the president that you shouldn't go down this road if it affects the world economy.
Which is a very interesting moment. I think the Trump administration had thought that the Chinese would put pressure on the Iranians. Instead, it looks like the Chinese are suggesting to President Trump that the blockade of the Gulf of Oman, but also the lack of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is impacting not only China, but could lead to a global recession, and that they would, the fingers would point at him. Right now, again, I don't think the president anticipated this, but you think about, Spain, Italy, the Brits, all of NATO, the Pope, are putting pressure on him. And I think you're going to see that the president is going to look for an off-ramp in these upcoming negotiations. The question is what it will be. I think a lot of people would be disappointed if it just basically boiled down to the deal that Obama had back in 2014, which is we'll lift some sanctions and you promise to stop your nuclear ambitions, as you would put it. But what does that mean? Does that mean 5 years, 20 years? I don't know.
But Hugh, that JCPOA, the problem was enforcement and actually making sure that the Iranians lived up to their end of the deal. And we found out over time that they didn't.
We could take all hour to talk about the problems with the JCPOA. Bret, it was the worst diplomatic deal in history, but the president will not agree to that. He is going to demand an on-time, anywhere inspection regime. I think he must get back the highly enriched uranium, either through the IEA or through some consortium. What Juan mentions is true, but the reality is we don't care what the Chinese think. We don't care what our NATO partners think. I'm very certain he doesn't really care what the Pope thinks right now. Donald Trump cares about bringing Iran to heel and maybe getting freedom to 92 million Iranians. And that's what I think the Pope and the other people ought to be cared about too.
The Iranians said to sit down. They wanted to make sure that there were also peace negotiations between Israel and Lebanon and the fighting with Hezbollah. A New York Times, in rare direct talks, Israeli and Lebanese officials seek way forward. They're not expected to immediately produce a deal to end the war between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran-backed Lebanese militia that Israel says is attacking its attacks are targeting. Lebanon was hoping that a ceasefire would be reached. Netanyahu of Israel has ruled out a ceasefire. The aim of the discussions in Washington would be disarming Hezbollah. Here's the Israeli ambassador on that.
We discovered today that we're on the same side of the equation. And that's the most positive thing we could have come away with. The head of Hezbollah warned the government of Lebanon yesterday not to participate in these talks. And the government of Joseph Aoun bravely said no to Hezbollah. And this is the beginning of a very strong battle against Hezbollah.
Andy, as we're talking about the fight with Iran and all that's happening, we haven't really been talking a lot about the battle between Israel and Hamas and Israel and Hezbollah.
Yes, and I think this very well could be one of the unintended consequences, and if potentially a very positive one, of this action in the Middle East. These are two parties that have not spoken to each other in 30 years, I believe, and now they are talking, and I think that point bears repeating that Hezbollah did not want them to go forward, and the Lebanese decided that they would do it anyway. And it does allow this possibility of boxing out another terrorist organization.
Would be something. Stand by. Up next, a loaded to-do list for Congress, and then send your questions at Bret Baier. I'll answer some of them. It is TikTok Tuesday.
Congress goes back into session this week, and we are committed to making sure that our homeland security is fully funded.
To be clear, Republicans could open DHS if they wanted to. We also passed twice a bill that would easily fund all of DHS aside from ICE and CBP.
The Democrats, who are constantly obstructing, have no interest in governing. We've got to be the adults. We can use reconciliation to do it.
Well, a lot happening on Capitol Hill. Our own Chad Pergram, very busy these days. We're back with our panel. It's Congress focal points this week. You've got the reconciliation, which requires 50 votes, Republicans in the Senate amid the DHS shutdown. FISA reauthorization, Iran war powers resolution, coming days, Save America Act, the Bondi deposition still pending, and member expulsion calls. A lot to do. The reconciliation, it seems like, Hugh, they're going to try to pack a lot in there.
I hope they do, Bret. Senator Schumer seems intent on keeping the Republicans competitive in the fall by standing in the way of the SAVE Act, standing in the way of DHS funding. And I think reconciliation, though difficult, will make it possible to reopen the government, get everything done on the agenda, and they need to get FISA done. That's the one thing that must be done. We can't go blind.
Well, speaking of that, the debate over FISA is real. It has always been. Here's the back and forth.
This is the constant challenge of protecting our national security, and FISA has been helpful in that, and protecting our individual liberties. So it's always been a very tense balancing act.
Personally, I think we need to see it done. I've talked with John Ratcliffe, our CIA director. This is a tool that he certainly needs.
If you trust government, you failed history class. Color me skeptical. I don't know how I'm going to vote.
You know, there's dissension, worry in the Republican ranks, too. Juan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I would point out that there's bipartisan call for some reform that includes warrants, so that warrants would be used as part of this process. The president is asking for a clean bill. He just wants them to pass something. He's pressing Republican members to be unified in getting this done. But I think that what you're seeing here, and this, by the way, FISA would expire on the 20th of this month, so it's coming up pretty fast. What I think you're seeing is that people, and we just saw this from Senator Kennedy of Louisiana, there are Republicans who have concerns that if you allow the government to search American citizens' information, and you can do this inadvertently because you're going after a bad guy, but then you come into a pocket of American information, and then do you have access? Can you exploit it? I think there are people who feel that that is in violation of Fourth Amendment privacy.
You were going to say, Annie, I just want to add that, you know, without DHS funding, and then you have the possibility of this going by the wayside, there are a lot of security experts that say this is a perfect storm.
Yeah, and then sort of many security experts saying this is must-pass legislation. You know, I feel like the Trump administration has been doing a really interesting job as they've been lobbying for it and putting out some classified information, or declassifying information that's made it clear where this legislation, this authority has been useful, particularly in preventing a terrorist attack on Taylor Swift's concert in Austria. In helping the U.S. government pick up a cartel leader in Mexico. I mean, of course, Juan is right. This tension is real between protecting privacy of American citizens, but the authority is one that is powerful, and there are lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who want to get it passed.
I'd implore Senator Kennedy to go look at some of the warrants. I did FISA warrants for 2 attorney generals in the 80s. We have thousands of malicious, malevolent actors in the United States who are not American citizens. We have to keep track of them. You lose one of them, you'll lose lots of American lives.
Finally, you have these two congressmen, Juan, resigning, Eric Swalwell, Tony Gonzalez. Swalwell, though, it was quick. The Democrats circled the wagons quickly. New York Times, have these people learned nothing? I can't help but wonder how many Democrats in Congress and California Party had heard the whispers or otherwise had an inkling of this problem well before the scandal exploded. Wasn't there anyone in a position to at least stop him from strutting into a high-profile race for governor? They got him out quick.
They got him out quick, but I got to tell you, today in Washington among Democrats, there's a fever pitch that goes beyond it, beyond the resignation to what did you know and why didn't you say something? Mm-hmm. And is this now going to spread so that people who didn't would be held culpable and damaged? And it's a very interesting moment in Washington because we have lots of sex scandals going on around, but
year after year.
But this one, for some reason, I think the Democrat sense could expose them and limit their liability, if you will, on some of the Epstein stuff or what's going on in the Labor Department, all that.
More accusers coming out, going public. We'll follow it all. Panel, thanks. Okay, it is time for TikTok Tuesday. Pat writes, I'd like to know if you think a deal will be reached with Iran. Well, you know, we're covering all sides of it, but I do hear within the administration, both publicly and privately, that they think they're a lot closer than they've let on as of yet. And so we'll see if these next talks get across the finish line. OJ wonders, what's your cheat meal? Oh, man. You know what I gave up for Lent? I gave up cheese pizza because I can look at a cheese pizza and gain weight. That's my cheese pizza love cheat meal. Beth Y'all asks, how does Brit Hume really feel about Gutfeld impersonating him? Here's Gutfeld.
Roll it, please. This is Castile, the Tedrick. This is at the Philly Zoo, Dana. I like to go to the Philly Zoo with the lovely Molly Hemingway.
So I've talked to Brit about that. I wanted him to do a Greg Gutfeld impersonation. He didn't. He chuckles less these days. Thanks for inviting us into your home. That's it for this Best Report. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. The Ingram Angle is now.